Welcome to this webinar. I'm Kristen Smith. I'm a staff member with the Criminal Justice section, so I just have one announcement. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a question and answer focus session, so after our panelists talk, you'll have the opportunity to ask them questions about their experiences. So the chat function is not what you use to do that, so we're using the question and answer function on the menu bar at the bottom. So when time comes for questions, if you'd like to submit a question for our panelists, please use the question and answer function at the bottom of the screen, and our moderator will direct it to a specific panelist and read it out loud. So with that, thanks for joining, and I'll turn it over to the moderator.
Great, thank you, Kristen. And hello, everyone that's watching. Thanks for tuning in. This is Graduating into a Recession, advice from young lawyers who graduated into the Great Recession. So obviously we know that COVID has changed a lot of the job landscape for the legal field, and we recognize the uncertainty that that brings. And so a lot of students graduating, getting ready to take the bar, who haven't secured a job yet, this is a big concern for them. And yeah, we're excited to learn from young lawyers who have been through it and who have advice for us. And just a couple of announcements before we dive in. We want to make sure that everyone who's watching is aware of the Criminal Justice Section Mentorship Program. So you can sign up on the CJS website and be assigned a mentor. And there's more details on the website if you're interested. And also look out for new law student and young lawyer emails that the digest includes content, programs, job opportunities, publication opportunities. So be on the lookout for that. And with that, I'm going to introduce our panelists. So we have first Kirsten Brown. She is the Deputy District Attorney for the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office. Thank you for being here. We have Deanna Adams. She is the Senior Analyst of the Judicial Council of California. Thanks for being here, Deanna. We have Emmanuel Depas, of the Law Office of Emmanuel Depas. Thanks for being here. And we have Hani Fakhoury, the Assistant Federal Public Defender of the Northern District of California. Thanks for being here. So before we jump into Q&A, we're going to have each panelist sort of discuss their own experiences first, starting with Deanna Adams. And she cannot stay for the entire period of the webinar. So if anyone has specific questions for her experience, feel free to put them in the chat and we can ask while we still have her here. And if not, she is available on ABA Connect and you can find her and shoot her a message on there. And with that, Deanna, you have the floor.
Thank you, Danielle, and thank all of you for attending. I graduated in 2010, so right at the end of the Great Recession, while the economy was still slow to build, and I also decided that I was going to move to a different state from the school in which I graduated. So I went to school in New York, decided to move to California where I had attended college. And with that, sort of moving away from all of the connections I made in law school, all the connections I made in working throughout law school, and having to sort of navigate this new jurisdiction and these new cultures, as a lot of you can imagine, East Coast is very different than West Coast and how things are done. So, I was lucky to have some of the background from my college days in navigating West Coast culture, but also sort of going into this new legal landscape, which is an added culture on top of the West Coast culture. One of the first things I did was reach out to my law school's career services department. They were able to connect with law schools in California to see if they could offer support. Law schools, as you can imagine, are not too happy about taking law students who do not attend their schools and helping them with career, particularly whenever there's challenges in finding jobs and the amount of jobs available. So making that connection with my law school career services and them reaching out to their network was able to help me get access to listings that are sent directly to law schools, as well as networking events and things like that. I was also really willing to sort of be open and available to any type of opportunities that may fall. So doing a lot of volunteer work, both with local associations, whether those were local bar associations or profession-specific associations. So if there were associations geared towards women's leadership, that was something that I participated in, or other avenues like that where you have sort of these unpredictable networking opportunities. You don't know who's going to be there, but you also have opportunities to meet people who may be able to connect you down the long run. I also started getting more involved with civic engagement, so helping out with my community. And I plug that. I know, a lot of times as lawyers, we think of pro bono opportunities. I have made more connections that led to career opportunities through my pro bono or for my civic engagement work helping communities. So for instance, one job that I had who sort of turned my direction towards the policy side, which I'm now working, was someone who was not a lawyer, but she was part of a hiring committee. And she knew me from some of the volunteer work that I did in the community, knew I was a lawyer, that was what they were looking for, and connected me to that position. So look at other opportunities when you're volunteering. Also a good opportunity that I wish I would have taken advantage of as a recent grad, but have more recently, looking at appointments in either the state or local governments. A lot of time when people think of the appointment process, they think of judges or full-time paid appointments. But there are other appointments, whether it's on a committee, a task force within local and state governments that, one looks really good on your resume that you have a gubernatorial or mayoral appointment, but also opens connections for other people you can outreach to, or just have a nice resume booster. So that's one thing I want to plug, even though I connected with that a little bit later in my career. I was also allowing myself to be open to different practice areas. And that's actually how I got into criminal justice. I worked in entertainment law throughout law school. I worked in corporate law firms based in entertainment. And it was through exploring different opportunities that were open that sort of shine the light on, wow, criminal justice is a really cool area and something that I really excel in, as well as some of the related policy areas that may not traditionally come to mind, but that impact criminal justice. So my work now is focused on forensic mental health. So looking at mental health as it relates to the state courts and policy design and implementation, which is something that, when I graduated was not something I even knew existed. And health policy just sounded really boring to being something that I, begrudgingly took on, fell in love with, and found this niche area that allows me to advance my career and sort of build a career that is encompassing so many elements that are coming to attention now before lawmakers. So keep an open mind if someone approaches you for something that, may not look like, strictly criminal justice. It may have a tie-in that will set you apart whenever you are applying for judges. Another thing was expanding my network to other non-obvious roles. So a lot of, at least as my career has expanded, a lot of the people who I connect with and who sort of set me at an advantage within my role is having networks that expand across probation and sheriffs, beyond the traditional judge, public defender, prosecutor roles. So, building a network where you these other justice system partners who, whenever your department or wherever you eventually go into is looking to find, different avenues to access justice or to build new programs. At least if you're in California, there's a lot of new programs coming down the pike. Having those connections already puts you at an advantage of, you're not meeting anybody new. You're not trying to get them to trust you. You already have that built-in network. So I'm just expanding outside of the more obvious roles. Lastly, I want to make a pitch for being involved with different ABA sections and committees. I know that as a law student and a recent grad, you have a lot that you're already dealing with, studying for the bar, if I guess in this climate, if your state is actually having the bar exam, or, looking for a job, but having the ABA and opportunities available is very helpful in expanding your reach, whether it is just developing the practical expertise and professional expertise, or finding opportunities to boost your resume. I was involved, I think, with like 3 or 4 different sections, obviously most partial to criminal justice, but I found opportunities in writing magazine articles and journal articles, or attending events, or representing different sections on their behalf. And a lot of the sections are very excited to get younger members involved, whether it's in leadership positions or as a representative. So becoming very flexible in how I define my career. So, I guess in one example was being involved with the section on science and technology law. There's like a sliver of that goes into criminal justice, but being able to leverage that sliver so I can, join them, start infusing some of the ideas that I have into how they're building their section. And then also within criminal justice, and I know I'm running a little bit over my time, but wanted to spend a little bit more knowing them to jump off. But becoming involved with the criminal justice section, there's a lot of opportunities in writing, whether it's for the newsletter, the magazine. They have an annual publication, the State of Criminal Justice, where they annually have a call for author opportunities. Within the YLC, which I co-chair, we're always looking for new voices, new perspectives, ways that you can get involved. I graduated in 2010. I have a very different expectation of some of the challenges that recent law grads will face, because I don't have that experience now. So there's a lot of opportunities, and from, again, my work with CJS, everyone is very excited to bring on new ideas. So if you have something that's sort of burning, even if it's in other committees, if you reach out to the committees or reach out to ABA staff, they are very good at helping to develop those skills and also turn them over to the correct people who can help you launch those. So that is me. And again, if you have any questions while I'm on, I'll be on for about 10 more minutes. Please don't hesitate to ask.
Awesome. Thank you, Deanna, for sharing. I did have one follow-up question. Did the move that you had from New York to California, did it have to do specifically with employment, or that was just?
Yes and no. So I had connections that would have landed a job in New York, but I was thinking more long-term of where I would want to live, for, later on in life. And unfortunately, California and New York do not have reciprocity. California does not have reciprocity with any other state. It's also notoriously the hardest bar exam, and New York is the second hardest. So I took, maybe a cop-out, but I took the idea of, if I have to take a very hard bar exam, I'm going to take it in a place that I can avoid the snow. So it was career related, but more long-term career rather than instant career.
Awesome, thank you. And now we'll have Kirsten Brown share her experience.
Thank you, Deanna. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me first briefly apologize for my casual dress. I am away from home right now. My husband and I aren't quarantining at our house, and it didn't dawn on me until this morning that I have nothing that even resembles any sort of professional clothing. So I apologize for my tank top. I am taking this call really seriously. I am a deputy district attorney in the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. I specialize in sex crimes, so I prosecute sexual assaults for adults and children, domestic violence, as well as human trafficking cases almost exclusively. I've been with the DA's office for about 7.5 years, and I graduated in 2008. And got bar results right as things were really getting bad in the recession at that time. I think it was October-ish in 2008 that things really started to hit the fan. So by the time I was moving into the job market, things had gotten bad. I think you will probably hear a lot of common themes in listening to what Deanna had to say. I'm sure all of us have very similar advice about some key things you should be doing right now. This is a really unique time period. There's a lot of similarities to '08, but so many differences because of how much uncertainty is left. At least I had the opportunity to take the bar, get results, get licensed, and then try to figure out how I was going to work. And for so many of you, you're left with wondering if you'll even take the bar in the first place and when those results will come, and will you even be allowed to leave the house to go on interviews. So I don't envy that position. But in addition to studying for the bar right now, thinking about your future job prospects should be like your second job. And like Deanna said, aggressively networking is key. And a great place to start with that is your law school. You should be on a first name basis with every career advisor in your career development office. They should know you personally. You should know them. Because they could be a conduit for opportunities that could be a really good fit for you. They tend to know students really well that work with them and could almost, on a personal level, help guide you during this time period. Along those lines, I would get in contact with the Alumni Association at your law school and get yourself a mentor or two or three. I'm vice president of my law school's Alumni Association, and working with current and recent graduates is one of the things that we love to do most. Even if we can't offer job opportunities specifically, having a practicing attorney to review your resume, review cover letters, do mock interviews, and just answer questions that you have that you might not want to ask a prospective employer, but you want a real answer from a practicing attorney. So build your network, build the biggest network you can of people who are advocating on your behalf. Also, like Deanna said, be willing to think outside the box of the type of work that you're willing to do, which means being well read and understanding the current trends that are happening right now. What are the practice areas that are really starting to heat up because of the COVID crisis? Think healthcare law, employment law might not be, this is the criminal justice section, so those might not be the things that you're immediately thinking about, but under the circumstances, be willing to broaden your horizons. A criminal practice area is always going to be robust, but the courts are, for lack of a better word, a hot mess right now. At least they are in California. I'm not sure what's happening around the country. So hiring freezes, layoffs, court closures, clogged courts, those types of things are inevitable. They're already starting to happen, and I think they're really coming down the pipeline. So your dream job with one of the traditional criminal justice type agencies might not be on the forefront, but there's typically volunteer opportunities. My office takes volunteers on a rotating basis 3 times a year. So be looking for your state and local municipalities to see if they have volunteer opportunities. And really, really read about, like I said, the practice areas that are starting to heat up that might tide you over until you're able to slide in. Because there was a hiring freeze in almost every district attorney's office when I graduated, I had to switch gears. I wound up working for LexisNexis, the legal research company, for a couple of years. I then transitioned to bankruptcy litigation and then ultimately moved into the DA's office about a year or so after that. So definitely be willing to be flexible and know that even if you can't get your foot in the door of where you want to be right now, there's valuable experience you can gain from any type of legal work that can help aid you in the future.
Awesome. Thank you, Kirsten. You did echo a lot of the same sentiments of being flexible and making sure you're volunteering and looking for those different kinds of opportunities that we might not be thinking about right now. So
and volunteering can even be a challenge in this climate, because that's what a lot of people are trying to do, even seasoned attorneys who have been laid off. The competition becomes steep. So along those lines, think about, even in a volunteer capacity, how you're distinguishing yourself from all of the other licensed and about to be licensed lawyers that are looking to do the same thing.
Very true. I did not think about that. And Next, we'll have Emmanuel Depas share his experience. And feel free to put in the Q&A again any questions you have throughout, and I'll be sure to catch them, and then we'll do Q&A after everyone has shared.
All right, just make sure everybody can hear me, right? All right, good. So yeah, I graduated in 2009 from Hofstra, and the whole time I was at Hofstra, I figured I was going to be a public defender. Little did I know there's a hiring freeze going on, and I kind of had to change gears. Passed the bar, couldn't get a job, so I decided to just volunteer with the city councilman's office and Brooklyn Defenders. See, what happened was in January 12, 2010, there's a big earthquake in Haiti, and I'm Haitian, and I was able to tap into my culture. I speak the language, so I started volunteering and started processing these temporary protected status applications, and that kind of just shifted the direction. It slowly went from wanting to become a public defender to saying, hey, I have some pretty unique skills. I have a language, and this understanding the culture, and I can just tap into immigration. So did a lot of volunteer work, and one day met a guy who introduced me to another guy who said he had some office space for me. And throughout my volunteer work, I was able to build my name up a little bit. So literally when I opened up my office, clients came looking for me. So I think volunteering is definitely very important. You're gonna learn and meet a lot of people throughout the process. It can change your direction. You can go from wanting to be one thing and end up being another thing, and working as another entity. Another thing I wanted to add to is after graduation, I was a little self-conscious. I wasn't big about joining bar associations and everything like that. But I ended up creating a bar association, the Haitian American Lawyers Association, New York, in 2013. And running that bar association, I was able to meet a lot of other attorneys that I was able to use as mentors for my own private practice. I was literally wet behind the ears, going to court. I didn't even know where the court was, didn't know where the clerk's office was. So literally, whenever I had a question, I had somebody that I can call upon. And I think that is extremely important, because law school gets you ready, but it doesn't really get you ready to practice, So definitely joining a bar association, joining up with a mentor to get the right experience. So throughout the years, I started out practicing immigration defense, getting people green cards, and transitioning to immigration defense, which is basically preventing deportations and such, which overlaps with criminal defense. So I found myself in criminal court and basically trying to work out, pleas that didn't have collateral consequences. And, and also to other criminal attorneys who called me to advise them on, pleas to take. So, there's ultimately volunteering and not stressing out during this period. I think that's probably the biggest mistake that I made. I actually had a heart attack from the stress of not knowing what was going on, not getting the job offers. I remember I was getting offered like $40,000, and I had $220,000 debt, and I just believed in myself. I found my passion, spent time with family, didn't go crazy, and then found my passion, which was immigration, and just believed in myself and just started the practice. So, not stressing out and letting the chips fall as they may, and believing in yourself. Volunteer, and you'll find your passion and take it from there.
That's really cool. That's great. I like that you touched on having the mentors to really help guide you through the court process, through your business, and how vital that was for you to have. And it happened for you through ABA.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool. And now we'll have our last panelist share, Henny Fakuri.
Thank you. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Thanks for having me. I'm the dinosaur of the panelists, because I graduated in 2007, right before things got horrible, but at the time when things were starting to really become difficult. So, and my you know, any good lawyer, they love their war stories. And one thing that I wanted to share with the group is that echoing what a lot of people have already said about networking, but just to also emphasize through my own experience that, you know, when we're talking about networking, you know, those networking connections that you make as a student and early in your career, they can, it's not just for the beginning stage of your career. Those connections can carry you on throughout the rest of your career. So I've been an attorney now for 13 years almost. And I'll share my personal experience because I want people to understand what I'm talking about. So when when I was in law school, I was an intern at the Federal Public Defender in Sacramento in the Eastern District of California. And one of the attorneys there was married to a law clerk to one of the federal judges in Sacramento. And when that second 2L summer, I applied for a judicial externship with that judge, I already knew the law clerk. And so that she put in a good word with me to the judge and got me the externship. Then when I was looking for a job following graduation, I knew I wanted to be a public defender. I wanted to stay in Northern California. I was a Northern California native. I had gone to school in Northern California. And so my goal was to stay in Northern California, but I applied to every county public defender office in the state of California. And I also applied to the federal public defender's office in San Diego, which is one of the only offices that takes new law grads. I did not want to move to San Diego. I did not want to go there, but I felt I had no choice. I had to try. And when I went to go interview for the job, it turns out that the person who interviewed me had a lot of respect for the judge I'd externed for and knew one of the law clerks. And I ended up getting the job in San Diego. And I worked there for about 3.5 years. And during, you know, the real heat of the recession, I was there from 2007 to 2011. When in 2011, when I applied for a job in the San Francisco Bay Area with the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which is a nonprofit that does digital civil rights advocacy, when I went in for my job interview, the person who interviewed me knew the law clerk of the judge I'd externed for. And so the first question in the interview was, you know, how is this person doing? Have you talked to her? And I said, actually, I talk to her every once in a while. And I got that job. And I was at the EFF for almost 4.5 years. And then when I went to the current job I'm at now, the federal public defender for the Northern District of California, and I'm in their Oakland office. When I went in to go interview for that job, the person sitting in the chair interviewing me was the attorney I knew from the Sacramento office 10 years before that, and said, oh, you know, my wife's asking how you're doing. And, you know, it's sometimes we forget that the legal profession, especially as you kind of drill down into like the criminal justice section more specifically, the legal community is actually pretty small. And as much upheaval as there's been due to the pandemic, Zoom and, you know, the fact that everybody's kind of stuck at home actually opens up opportunities for people to reach out and network and connect with people, because it's a lot easier now. You don't have to drive in an hour's worth of traffic to get to the happy hour bar. You can just log in, and I understand everyone's maybe a little zoomed out or people are tired of being in front of their computer screen all day, but there are opportunities there. And I want to stress, again, I know my experience is my experience and not everyone's going to have the same experience I had, but those connections and that networking you do early on in your career can really follow you along later in your career, especially if you keep up with those contacts, and opportunities end up opening themselves that you may not anticipate. I didn't want to go down to San Diego, but it actually was one of the best career decisions I ever made. I had a great experience. I learned a ton. I wasn't crazy about going to the EFF in San Francisco. It was very different from what I'd wanted to do, but I wanted to go to the Bay Area. Turns out it to be another really great thing that happened in my career, and created a digital Rolodex that I can still use to this day. And so obviously there are big challenges here that are different than 2007, 8, 9, and 10, where, you know, we had a tough job market, but we didn't have stay at home and the threat of disease and sickness and upheaval in the courts and the legal system. But like everyone's really said, that also opens up possibilities to think outside the box, to rethink how we do things. I think that's especially true in the criminal justice system as a whole. People are rethinking who do we determine should be detained, who are our prosecution priorities going to be, how can we think through these issues in a different way. And of course, that's driven by the pandemic. It's driven by the police brutality protests that have been happening. So we're really in a unique moment that's got a lot of bad in it, but also room for opportunities and creative thinking that young, intrepid attorneys really can, take advantage of and network, look for volunteer opportunities, look for connections, think outside the box, and parlay that to future employers to say, look, the criminal justice world is trending in this direction. Let's be ahead of that and think it through differently than the way we've done things in the past. So I don't envy recent law graduates. This is a horrible time for everybody for many reasons, but to the extent that you can make the best out of it and you pursue networking opportunities and think outside that box, I really encourage you to do it, and we'll get through this together. I mean, I think we kind of forget that sometimes, but we're going to get through this together, and hopefully we'll come out of it and having made positive changes to our legal system as a result.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I love seeing the map in my head of everywhere you were going and the people that you knew, and just, being able to put a red dot here and a red dot here. And it's like, these networks know each other. I can connect here. And just the importance, I don't think we hear enough of, like, keep up with people, keep up with those contacts, because you don't know what could happen in 10 years. So thank you all again for sharing your experiences. It's been awesome to hear. I didn't introduce myself. My name is Daniela Donoso, and I am a recent grad from Florida State University College of Law, in bar prep mode right now, but happy to be here. And yeah, so I think we can jump right into questions. And once, if there's questions from the audience, I'll pick those up. So a lot of these are coming from, again, a student who just graduated. In the heat right now, I'm in bar prep mode, right? So I have all these questions about, how did you guys deal with that summer of bar prep, knowing that you were going into a recession? How did you keep your spirits up? How did you keep your study mode on? If there was stress, and even just paying for having to take a bar exam, and not knowing obviously where you guys were financially, but knowing that you were going into recession and having to take the summer off. Were you guys working during that time? And so what did that kind of look like for you guys? And feel free, anyone could answer, and then we can move on as well.
I can jump in. For me, definitely finding a balance between studying and mental well-being was a challenge. I took it upon myself not to work, largely because the California bar tests a lot of general knowledge, but also California specific laws, which, coming from New York, I didn't know those, so I needed to learn those. So I took as much time as I needed off from the job search during the bar prep time, just to focus on learning the law. I was very fortunate to have people who would basically allow me to live with them without paying them. We made an agreement that, in 3 years, I'll pay them a set amount. So I didn't have to worry about even thinking about how am I going to go buy groceries today. They took care of that. I know not everyone is that have that gracious of a setup, but that helped a lot. I also took a lot of walks. It was something that was simple, where I could just get out, get fresh air. Sometimes, running hypotheticals in my mind, I won't lie, but just a time to get out and get away. I also kept in contact with a lot of my friends who were not lawyers, did not go to law school. So, people who had, already had their existing jobs and families and things like that, who would check in on me, send me something funny if, they know I needed a laugh, or, take me out for, a drink if I was studying too much. So that really helped. One plug I will have, and I know that the bar exams are changing in different places, but for me, it was very helpful to during the actual exam. California, it's 3 days long. I did not talk to anybody who was also taking the exam. You know, if you talk to somebody who's panicking, they're going to make you panic. So that was something that I did as well. And even taking the classes, a lot of times I went away from the in-person classes and just, you know, watched the video on my own, or, you know, went to the library to study on my own, just getting away from everyone else who was in a panic.
For me, that summer was pretty interesting. I was just glad that my mic on. Okay, I was just glad that I just graduated. And I was, like I said, I just had to try to balance, just trying to just enjoy myself, enjoy my summer, you know, maintaining my mental sanity and studying. So I would definitely suggest everybody just don't be content that you graduated. The race isn't over until, you know, August. You can literally just turn down, you know, and just relax in August. So, you know, continue stepping on the gas pedal and pass that exam. And spend time with your family once it's over. You kind of lose yourself in law school. So definitely reconnect with your family. A lot of waiting time.
I would add one additional thing, especially important this year because so many states are administering the bar different than they previously had. Understand how your test has changed and how it's going to be scored. We were chatting a little bit before this call started, and for Daniela in Florida, there's no longer an MBD. For me, that would have been a godsend because that was a huge weakness for me with the bar. And I made up for it in the performance exam in California, but definitely have an understanding of what sections. I know this isn't about bar prep, but just on a side note, understanding how the test is scored and what's going to be eliminated, and then how they're rescoring what sections you are taking, and then coming up with a strategy around that is really, really important. And I was one of those weird people, I think that Deanna and Emmanuel were probably trying to avoid, because I was consumed with the bar, obsessed. That's all I would talk about. I was that weird person that drove a practice route to the bar location, where I was going to park, how many steps to walk inside the, like, I'm weird like that. But that's my way of coping with stress. So, but I definitely take their tact of relaxing a little bit and knowing that it's going to be okay, but take it seriously and just have a plan. And that strategy revolves around how the exam is scored.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, and I guess following up with that, were there any sort of scholarships or grants made available to you guys during that summer for studying for the bar, in recognition that there was a recession and that maybe students didn't have the capacity or didn't have the sweet, you know, setup that Deanna had of, you know, free rent and things like that?
I can, I mean, from my experience, I looked for them, but didn't get them. But I took a bar loan, which basically floated me during that summer. I also acknowledge I was luckier than a lot of my colleagues because I had a job lined up starting in October, and I was taking the bar in July. So I knew I was going to have employment in the horizon, but I, you know, had to take out loans that took forever to pay back, just like everybody else, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I think that is certainly a struggle. It's something to be aware of. I mean, again, with the pandemic, I mean, if you're moving back home with mom and dad, that helps. I mean, it sucks, but it helps. You know, it lowers your costs. And if that's not an option, you just got to think, you know, critically about how you allocate your, you know, budgeting and doing all that grown-up stuff that students sometimes tend to put off. And then, you know, kind of jumping back to the last question real quick, something that came to mind just now is that in terms of studying for the bar overall, I would you know, I think, again, it's probably a lot of upheaval because of the COVID situation, but I remember thinking like the way I studied for the bar was probably pretty different from how other people I went to school with studied from the bar, but I think it's important for everybody to study in the way that works for them and not feel like, well, I have to do whatever Barbary says, or I have to do whatever the law review editor is doing. I think you should just be you, and you'll find that if you do that, the bar exam becomes a lot easier because you're not trying to do anything you don't already know how to do. It's just a matter of the knowledge, and you can learn those things. It's more like the anxiety of how to do it with all those people and all that. And again, I know it's a little different now because it's going to be virtual, but I would just, stick with what's worked. Don't try to reinvent the wheel or do something totally different.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful. Yep, the bar exam is just a beast of its own, right? Let's see, Honey kind of touched on this, but did you guys also have employment secured that you knew, and was that job contingent on you passing the bar the first time? Well, I guess we kind of heard already, you guys didn't really, but if you want to speak to that.
I was a recruiter for my law school while I was awaiting results. So I had that, and it paid. It was actually a great job. And that could be another tip. Reach out to your law school and see if there's any employment opportunities. If they'd be looking to hire a recent graduate in admissions, financial aid, being some kind of ambassador. I was a recruiter and literally traveled around the country going to law school fairs on my law school's dime. So that was actually really great. So I had that job lined up, and that lasted through getting bar results. In California, we don't get them until right before Thanksgiving. And at that point, I started interviewing for another job. So I had a temporary job, if you will, while I was taking the bar.
Yeah. And obviously you guys kind of talked about your journeys getting here to now the criminal justice realm and section that you're in. Were any of you interested in or passionate about public interest work during law school? Did you think that you wanted to pursue that? And if you did the recession sort of push you away from wanting to pursue that?
Well, so, I think I see criminal justice work as public interest work, whether you're defense or prosecution. This is not the career to get into if you want to make a lot of money. And so, for sure, the recession definitely makes you think twice about it. Like, there's the whole, a lot of the folks who go through the criminal justice path are going, they're working for government agencies, or they're becoming a solo practitioner, and they're in a completely different environment, both in terms of practice and money, than our colleagues who do OCI and who go to the law firm, and they're making 3 times as much money right off the bat. Now, I think, however, probably there's a reason why all of us are in the criminal world rather than in the civil law firm world. And that's because the civil law firm world sucks. And it's, they're going to make you, carry the partner's briefcase for 5 years before they even let you say a word in court. Whereas, I don't know what Kirsten's experience is, but if she's a deputy district attorney in LA, probably 2 weeks after she was in the office, they just had her in court. I got sworn in to the bar. You got to get sworn in after you pass your bar results. I got sworn in 2 minutes before a court appearance by the magistrate judge and went to the court appearance. So, I think, that's like another thing, which is, you should pursue your goals and pursue your dreams and pursue your interests. And and they have done studies on this that have shown that lawyers who work in public interest actually have way more job satisfaction than the lawyers who go through the churn of the law firm. And I'm sure there's a lot of value to the law firm, and a lot of folks do that and make their money and pay their loans and go into public interest. But if you can make public interest work right out of law school, you should do it. It's more rewarding. The work is challenging. They don't treat you like a little baby. You get to go to court and argue and be a grown-up and a grown-up lawyer. I did my first felony jury trial 6 months after I'd been sworn in the bar, and I was in federal court. And I'd already done a misdemeanor bench trial and a misdemeanor jury trial and 2 bench trials as a law student. So I had more experience than a lot of these law firm partners do in the courtroom. So, I mean, I think there's value to saying, you know what, if I can make it work, I'm going to try and make it work, and not just say, you know what, there's a recession, I want to do public interest, but I have to go do something else. I understand for some people that is going to be the reality. They can't afford it otherwise, and that's a shame. And I feel bad for those people. And I get it if that's the route they have to go down. But if you're not in that position, if you're able to take that $40,000 a year job and make it work, I would encourage you to do it, because you'll find, I think, as a career matter, it'll be more rewarding. I mean, there's a reason people are in the criminal justice section as law students to begin with. And there's a reason that all of the panelists here, not a single one of us worked in a law firm. And that's because that's a different world. And for some people it'll work. But if you're here listening to this, if you're a part of the criminal justice section, chances are that's not the world you want to work in. And I would say good for you, you know, and keep with it, because, you know, there will always be a need for public defenders and prosecutors and policy workers and crimmigration, you know, the hybrid immigration criminal defense practice. We need that. We need that more now than we ever did before. And so follow your dreams and what you care about, and you'll have a more rewarding career as a result.
Yeah, if no one takes anything else from that, just take that, follow your dreams. And just as a recent graduate, I have an Equal Justice Works Fellowship that I'll be starting in September. And just like you said, like I wanted the satisfaction more of doing what I'm passionate in, and that is immigration work, crimmigration work. And for me, like being a Hispanic, Latina student, being a woman, being a DACA recipient, someone who, you know, had to go, you know, I paid my tuition with scholarships, and it is something that you can do. So like you said, like if people really want to pursue it, if you're really passionate about it, talk to your career centers. Don't let, you know, money be the reason that it holds you back. There are scholarships out there. There are fellowships that will pay you to design your own fellowship to do whatever you want to do. And that's awesome. So definitely can resonate with that. And again, just as a recent grad who, yes, is going through all this COVID craziness, I'm lucky enough to have known that I had job security since November of last year, but those opportunities, look for them early. They're available if you're interested in public interest work and criminal justice work. And yeah, and definitely go for that. I don't see questions in the chat, but I don't know if you guys, if there was anything else you wanted to share, or if you guys had any questions for each other regarding this. Or anything else that you think would be valuable for recent grads to know as they take on the world soon.
Another thing to keep in mind with public interest work is the public interest loan forgiveness program. While I'm not sure, you know, the future of that program, or this is the first year that loans can technically be forgiven, and it sounds like it's been a little bit of a mess. I'm about 3.5 years away from being able to apply for my loans to be forgiven, but it does significantly diminish what you're paying for the 10 years leading up to it. And then presumably, if the program works like it was initially touted, the balance of your loans are forgiven after 10 years of consecutive public interest work. And public interest is broadly defined. So, you know, having a decreased loan payment and then having, you know, for me, I will have well over 6 figures forgiven, again, assuming the program operates how it's supposed to, when it's all said and done, is another way that makes this type of work possible, when it certainly doesn't pay as much as the big firms do, but there's something to be said about being passionate about what you do. You're going to work hard as a lawyer regardless, that's period. And you might as well work hard at something that you love. and something that when you go home and lay your head down at the end of the day, you feel like what you spent hours doing throughout the day was meaningful. And even if that's not something you can do immediately, because I had to spend a short amount of time at a bankruptcy litigation firm, which I was not passionate about at all. It only drove me further wanting to get to the DA's office. But even if it's just for a short period of time, circle back to what you love, just like Hani was saying.
Awesome. I did have one question from sort of the advice that was given, specifically about just volunteering. And I know that, at least right now, obviously that looks a different, but was this like volunteering and not having a job security and, you know, volunteering your time and not being paid and the implications of that. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, obviously some people have more privilege than others in being able to volunteer and spend their time that way and not, you know, have to work and making those networks, making those connections. So where do you guys see leveraging, you know, your time and your resources and those networks that you want to create but might not be able to because financially you can't?
If you have to work and can't spend that time volunteering, that's where I would be looking to not only the ABA, but local bar associations and your law school associations to join up with whatever sections you might be interested in and participating in those programs. Usually for current students or recent grads, dues are incredibly low, if not free. So you can be doing things like going to brown bag lunches with the judges, or right now it's probably a lot more Zoom or online oriented, but I think like was said earlier, that's even more of a reason that you can participate because you don't have to, you know, drive and go across town and have, you know, you only have to look businesslike from you know, here up, even though I couldn't even pull that off today. But definitely spend some time investigating opportunities with local bar associations in the ABA. And again, reaching back out to your law school to see what connections you can make with local alumni. And I would just add, I know this isn't a question that came up, but in working with students the past couple of years, they're always asking, how do you network? I don't know what that means. What am I supposed to say? You can never go wrong with asking a lawyer, tell me about what you do. And even if you just sent an email that said, I, you know, read X, Y, and Z about you, I'm interested in what you do, can you tell me more? You're very likely to get a response, and maybe not right away because people are busy, but the easiest way to follow up with someone is to ask them to tell you more, and then kick it off from there. But the key thing is to get started and to say something. And it's hard to follow up with people, and developing relationships is a lot of work, especially when you're developing them from nothing. But you have to start, you have to try, and you have to put in that effort, and it will come back on you tenfold 10 years down the road.
Awesome. Well, did anyone else have any last minute advice or any other responses? It's okay if not.
I'm sorry, I feel like I'm dominating the conversation,
No,
but I
please.
just want to add one more thing to help keep you informed about what's going on. If you all that have recently graduated still have access to LexisNexis and Westlaw, as you should, I think, for at least 6 months to a year after you graduate, there's all kinds of legal practice sections and daily newsletters that they put out with top headlines for what's happening in the industry around the country. Subscribe to those and stay on top of the trends, what's going on, what practice areas are getting hot, what's slowing down, who seems to be hiring right now, what firms are laying off, and just kind of keeping your ear to what's going on. I get them now even 12 years out to see federal decisions, local decisions, stay on top of Supreme Court decisions, and just kind of the hot topics in criminal justice right now, and being well-informed and well-read can set you apart significantly from those that you're competing with to try to get these volunteer opportunities and jobs.
That's awesome. And if anyone is tuning in and were late, just a running list of some of the key points from today's awesome panel that shared with us their experiences of graduating into a recession in the legal field. You know, be flexible, think outside the box, connect to your career centers, connect to alumni, build networks that they can be long lasting and keep up with them. Look for different volunteer opportunities, whether inside the legal field or outside. You never know who you can engage with. Look for ABA mentors. They could be really helpful, or just mentors in general. And then if you're gonna work hard at something, you might as well work hard at something that you love. So follow your dreams. This is an awesome list. Thank you guys again for being here, for being with us. And yeah. Kristen's back, so there you go.
Yeah, I think we're good. Thank you so much to our panelists and to Daniela for being a fantastic moderator. Before all our attendees drop off, I just want to reiterate the announcements that Daniela made at the beginning of the program, which is we want to make sure that those attending this program are aware of the Criminal Justice Section's mentorship program. So you can sign up if you're interested in that on the Criminal Justice Section's website and be assigned a mentor. And there are more details about that program on the website. And then also look out for the our law student and young lawyer email digests from the section, which include programs, job opportunities, publication opportunities that are specific to law students and young lawyers. So as you'll see, some of those fit into some of the suggestions that our panelists made. So just want to remind you to check out those resources. And I think that's it. All right, great. We'll sign off. Thank you again for attending, and thank you so much to our panelists and our moderator for doing a fantastic job and sharing their experiences, and I think giving us all some motivation too. All right, bye.
Hey, Kristen.
Bye.
Bye.